Hi and welcome back. This is Anna May from Accelerated Excellence and True Awakenings, the Training and Coaching Center. And today I want to talk about two other laws of the unconscious mind, which is that it controls our perceptions, all of our perceptions and behavior, and it functions best as a whole integrated unit. So what does it mean for your mind to function at its best? Why is it important and how does it influence your outcomes? So when I'm saying it functions as the best whole and integrated unit, think of those times some part of you feels excited about this change and some part of you feels frightened and stuck in the comfort zone of our past. And some part of you wants to make this leap into the new phase of your life, and some part of you just likes what's familiar and wants to stay in the way things are. So when we have these two parts of us that are really going into opposite directions, it creates indecisiveness and incongruency. So it's like setting your direction to go to the shop, which is in a certain direction, and but turning in the opposite direction when you get out your driveway. And so then your GPS starts screaming to get your attention to please turn around and make a U-turn and go back into the direction where you actually set the outcome or the goal to be, of where you wanted to be, what the destination was. So the more that we are aligned with our outcomes, the more that we are in agreement, the easier we'll get to our destination. So it's best for us to align all of our beliefs in order to support the outcomes that we're looking for, right? So, and that brings me to the second one, which is that the unconscious mind controls all of our perceptions and behavior. Now they are directly linked to one another. Our internal perceptions influences our behavior. And these internal perceptions is our book of rules, like we've spoken about in the previous videos. All these filters, all of our beliefs and our values and our focus and decisions and memories of the past, our experiences of life, all of these are what influence our perception and how we perceive the world to be. So not only do those perceptions represent our filters that attract more of what is in our perception, the more that we attract that way, the more we create the exact same result. Like Einstein said, you know, if you want something to change, we need to change something. But doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is the definition of insanity, right? So we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that actually created them. So we've got to change those perceptions in order for the behaviors to adjust automatically. And all of those perceptions are just being run by the unconscious mind. So as you perceive the world and the more you make assumptions and value judgments on what you think is happening around you in your environment, in other people's opinions, as they verbalize them and you might agree with them, and then that opinion becomes your opinion and that influences your perception, which ultimately will influence your behavior. And these then just become these automatic little tapes running in autopilot in the unconscious. The unconscious mind just runs them. It controls those perceptions and therefore controls all of our behavior. So it's not the creator of those perceptions. That's why we're going to talk about the conscious and the unconscious mind and the differences and why they're so important. And that's why it's so important for us to integrate both set of rules for the conscious and the unconscious, for them to start working together. This integration is what we refer to as functions as a whole unit. That all parts of me, that my focus is aligned to my outcomes, that my physiology is aligned to my outcomes, my thoughts, my behavior, my perceptions. The more that they are all aligned to my outcomes, the quicker I'm going to reach my destination. If I have any sort of resistance or limitations or doubts or fear or anything that influences my perception, I want you to think about driving into the direction of where you set your GPS to go. If you're opening up the window and sticking your head out, you'll get a lot of wind resistance, right? So the more resistance you have, the more it will influence the speed of you achieving your outcomes. The more aligned you are, the more in agreement you are with everything that is in your perceptions, the more acceptable everything is, the more decisive you will be. The easier it will be for you to decide on what type of action to take, and that will obviously decide and help you achieve your outcomes a hell of a lot quicker. So to integrate the mind into one wholeness is just referring back to that previous exercise where I said to you, focus first on what it is what you want. Learn to use your language and your words in such a way that it explains the exact direction. Be as specific as what you need to be around where you want to go and what it is you want to achieve. Because a lot of people say, hey, I want more money. So if you pick up 5 cents outside, do you have more money? Right? So be more specific in exactly how much is it that you need. And when you start thinking about that and you hear that little hamster on the wheel giving you a whole lot of reasons why it's not achievable, that's the incongruency. That's the resistance. Those are the reasons that's going to slow you down, because the conscious mind is like an attorney. It needs evidence, right? It needs to be convinced that it can be done. Now, if we haven't experienced it before, how do I even know that it can be done if I'm looking for that evidence in my experiences from the past? And so we've got to learn how to engage with the rest of the environment, observe, has it been done somewhere else? And that opens up that possibility, which reduces the resistance. So possibility is the opposite to doubt. Believing that things are possible and recognizing that your mind is that powerful that you can create anything, and just allowing us to do the research. Go, and if you have to listen to a motivational clip every day just to remind you that it's possible, then do that, because that would be forming a new habit that alters and affects your perception in a different way based on what is in there. So if there's any contradictory information in your belief system, then do what you need to on a daily basis. Read your desire statements on a daily basis, twice a day if you can, in order to affect that perception in such a way that it integrates into wholeness, so that the doubt diminishes, so that the naysayer in your own mind, that negative self-talk, gets to stop getting so much attention. And the more that you are feeling in alignment, and sometimes we don't have any evidence, right? Sometimes we don't actually know consciously what's going to work and what's not going to work, right? So it's about being curious again, about just trying different things until you find your perfect recipe, right? So when you think about getting an outcome, let's say baking a cake, even if I put all of the ingredients on the kitchen counter, that still doesn't give me a cake. And depending on what type of result I want, what type of cake I want to bake, if it's a red velvet cake versus a chocolate cake, then I need to change the ingredients, right? So if it is a fluffy light cake versus a dense moist cake, I need to mix those ingredients in a different way in order for the cake to come out the way that I want it. Even if I have all of the ingredients there, how I put it together can slightly be changed, and that will have an effect on the outcome. Now, it's about measuring that outcome as feedback, not as failure. Okay, so when we look at things and we say, oh, I didn't get it right, we try once and think that should be enough. But if you think about 11 million bits that's available, and that I only use around 50 bits per second in my conscious awareness, then surely there's a lot of information I'm not aware about, right? And that I can be curious and say, what's out there that I haven't yet experienced, that I can get my mind open to possibility that it exists, that there could be a possibility that I can achieve this easily and effortlessly. And if I can just get any form of resistance out the way, then I'll get there quicker. So pay attention to any form of resistance. Pay attention to any negative statements. Pay attention to you thinking it's not possible, it can't be done, or you're not good enough, or any of those type of things. And go back and create some desire statements. Flip it into what it is that you want instead, and imprint the beliefs that you need that affects your perception in such a way that it automatically gets the behavior to go where you need it to go to achieve your outcomes, right? So that integration of every part of the message, that you are mentally, physically, spiritually, all 100% aligned to that outcome. And that wholeness, when every part of you is going in the same direction, you'll get there a lot quicker, right? So focusing on that wholeness and allowing that to integrate into your perception, and your behaviors will become automatic. Your goals will be achieved effortlessly, right? So focus on that for this recording, and go and pay attention to your goals again. Notice if there's any resistance, and see how you can create the shift in your perception in such a way that can allow congruency, that you feel aligned, that there's no longer any resistance, that you can accept the possibilities. And then sit back and watch the magic happen as all that you need starts to show up in order for you to achieve your outcomes quicker and easily. Because we think change is hard. Well, if we do it consciously, of course it's going to be hard because you're working with 3% of your processing capacity. But if you're working with a mind in totality, if you're consciously working with your unconscious mind, the conscious mind being the goal setter, the unconscious mind is the goal getter. If you're consciously working with your goal getter, then of course you're going to achieve it a lot easier. That congruency, that wholeness is what's needed for you to be decisive and take those steps into what you think it needs for you to achieve your outcomes, right? And then take any feedback, adjust what you need to, slightly adjust your recipe or your strategy until you get what you want, until you can say, all right, well, like Edison said, it took 1,000 times to figure out how not to make a light bulb because he had to go through a process of elimination. And all of those options, once they were eliminated, was him just slightly adjusting until he found his perfect recipe in terms of achieving his outcome, right? So do the same, get yourself whole and integrated, have those perceptions affect you in such a way that you can feel alignment to your outcome. If there's any part of you that feels that can't be done, go and address it, do it as quick as you can because it will affect the pace that your goals are achieved at. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, and as always, sending you much love and see you in the next recording.